Now is the definite time to talk about one of the most important things right now in Fairy Tail, and it is the future of the series, mainly talking about the Alvarez War, as we are now approaching the second part of this series right now with the climax of this arc. Now, it's been pretty crazy now that since we've had all the Spriggans now reunite, regather, and a big question all that is who is going to be fighting who in the series, what is their relationships going to be with other, and how is this series actually going to conclude with this second part of the arc, whether or not the actual series will finally finalize at this arc or the one afterwards. A lot of this is being brought up because of the speculations of the very important news that is going to be mentioned coming up in the next couple of days when the magazine comes out, and we don't know whether or not that is talking about the anime returning. We don't know if this is announcing that the manga hasn't got very long left like in its series yet, like on the publication. There's a lot to talk about, but I think definitely is one thing that we should definitely focus in this video as well is the Spriggan 12. Who's going to be fighting who's going to be like how the relations to one another, and how are these fights going to be going up and going down. Now, I'm going to be mainly talking about first is the ones that I feel like are the most like important and obvious fights that we are going to be having in the series, which is the first one, which is going to be Eileen like fighting off against Urza. Now, we kind of know that there is definitely a relationship between these two women. We don't know if it's mother and daughter. We don't know if it's between two sisters. We don't know if she just happens to be an aunt or a relation to Urza, but there is definitely a relationship between the two of them. While personally, I think the mother side, I think that's what my opinion of, but it could go both ways of the two. But honestly, from what we're seeing so far and all that, is that I feel like Urza is the only kind of capable person really deal with against like since she has so many crazy amounts of like enchantments and just amount of stuff that she can do, that I feel like it is honestly up to Urza at this point, where she has the multiple switching of armor, that she's only able to go against someone like Eileen. I've done a full video about their kind of fight before, so I'm going to link that down below as well if you want to check that out, or I'm going to get a full out opinion on that. Next, I think, is another obvious one, which is the Brandish versus Lucy fight. Ever since she's gone back to August's side, now that all the generals have reunited, even some of them being resurrected, I feel like now, even though we had that really jokey fight between those two, which I think was like one of the worst parts of the actual war, now we can actually have a serious fight between them, and I think this is definitely going to conclude through the whole little thing that she's been having right now, and it's definitely I feel like it's going to, out of everyone, it's going to be Lucy that's going to kind of have to pull her out out of their senses, saying no, we generally do care about you, that was just one guy manipulating. It's I would never do that to you, and all that. We're friends. I want to bring this light and all that. Both of our mothers would wanted us to become friends and become close. I believe this is what's going to be happening, but I think it is going to have to take Lucy kind of snapping her out of their senses. She probably is going to have to use something like Unonometrium to go and knock her out of their senses, because right now she definitely wants some blood and all that. She definitely wants some revenge after what happened to her and all that, and after attacking August, which this is now thing we're going to bring up, which is August, where it's who can fight August on this level? As we have clearly seen, the man is unstoppable, and this is where Gildas is definitely going to be involved in this part. I think now, the second part and all that, with all the Fairy Tail people who are gathered, maybe this could be a point where Gildas arrives, or maybe he is just having to be wandering around, where it's I heard the noise and all that, so I came running out. So we could see him in the next couple of chapters be there, or we could just actually see him already midway, or already there, and he's already going to wreak some mayhem. And I generally think that at this point Gildas is going to take out some of the weaker versions of the Spriggans. I think this is where we're a little bit too unsure, where I think he might actually just generally just take out some of the characters like Argyle, Jacob. I feel like he might take out some of these ones that already had their fights, although they were not the best fights. I feel like he's definitely going to do this, and then August is going to arrive, maybe teleport him out there, and he's saying I'm going to deal with this one. This is the one that I was actually meant to be. Now the question is would there be any relation? People suggested once before about there is a maybe Gildas is had something that he's kept hiding, that August is his father. I don't personally think that. I think there's going to be a clash of clothes, although that'd be really interesting if there is a stake between Gildas and here, or that maybe the fact that he knew that Acnologia was coming and this was his own point and he was preparing to actually take on Acnologia. But but I definitely think when like Gildarts arise, this is when things is gonna hit the fan, because definitely right now and all that, like Gildarts, the only things I feel like can actually deal against his level is someone of August, or even that rematch between Acnologia. Another one that's going to be kind of a little bit obvious is Grain versus Invel, and I feel like this is the main reason that what we've seen a bit of Invel's power. He's not only just got the ability to just freeze like objects, he's just able to like freeze people in general, and able just to like completely freeze like people's like emotions and like train of thoughts, like hit like the ability that he has of like his ice manipulation, kind of like of just freezing in general, is a lot more crazier than we originally thought, like what he could actually do. And one thing that could be said is like oh well, what's his like tie and all that with Gray? Well, personally and all that, maybe he was like his father was the original like, you know, master of Ul, like, you know, that could be a thing that could be added and say like Ulte was never able to get to that level of like, you know, mastery, and this could be something. Maybe he was like one of the people that originated like just like how powerful that ice is, and maybe Invel inherited that all, and he's just, this is why he's like one of the most deadliest like ice magic. And we definitely saw very early on when they mentioned Invel is that, you know, that his whole thing was ice and all that, and like the whole thing of freezing, and it's like that was the one where it's like Gray is probably the only one that can counteract that, because he's like able to freeze, like, you know, maybe he's able to stop that kind of magic going out, because we could clearly see that maybe this is pretty strong and all that, but she couldn't defend herself from that. Like maybe it was probably because she was caught off guard, but the fact is I feel like the only way, like, it's kind of the saying goes, you like gotta fight fire with fire, and in this case you gotta fight ice with ice, where it's just like maybe like Gray is the only one that can nullify this effect, or just isn't affected it, and they're just gonna actually have a proper out brawl with it. Next is God Serena. Now, God Serena, especially since we saw that Acnologia just straight up killed him, I feel like this would be a perfect time for the Dragon Slayers to come out. Now, I don't really think like maybe Sting and Rogue, they could get involved, since like he's like just got so many Dragon Slayer Lacrima inside of him, so maybe this could be like a joint effort of like all the Dragon Slayers getting together. Like it could have like all the 7 Dragon Slayers get together. That would be really cool, since we haven't seen Cobra yet. It would be nice if Cobra gets involved in this fight, and that it actually takes all 7 Dragon Slayers to get in. If it isn't going to be the 7 Dragon Slayers though, it would probably be Natsu, Wendy, and Gargiel that would actually get involved in this fight. Regardless if the other Dragon Slayers get involved, whether it be Sting, Rogue, Laxus, and Cobra get involved in this fight as well, I can definitely see that the 3 Dragon Slayers will get involved in one way of this fight or another. Since like God Serena is like, I feel like is a great hill to climb for the Dragon Slayers to see. This is like at that level, if they can beat someone, God Serena, that easily just got wiped out by Acnologia, I feel like it will be a great show of strength to see where they've come from the series right now. Then it comes into the other like Spriggans that we haven't mentioned yet as well, which is the questionable ones. Of, like, are they gonna have actual fights and all that like we did in the series, or are they gonna have like really short ones? And the ones that I'm kind of a little bit on that is definitely Jacob and Argyle, since like they had their fights already. Like Jacob already had a fight with Natsu. I don't think Natsu's gonna fight Jacob again, unless it's going to be a very quick fight, just getting knocked out of the way. I don't see that Argyle, I don't see that Jacob, or like even Bradman for that fact. I don't really think like they're going to be having long fights and all that. Like I think that the most that we saw of them is definitely already there, and it's like I can't really see them fighting different opponents. That's why I feel like if like say like Gildarts gets involved in some way, that he's just going to knock them all out of the way. He's going to like take out like that'll be like a great show of strength. It's like, oh my god, it's like, you know, or, like out of all this and all that, he's already managed to take 2 or 3 Spriggans down. Like I definitely feel like that's the whole thing about it. So it's like, you know, that's the question. Like it's both Jacob, Bradman, Argyle, Wall. Like they're the ones I'm not particularly too sure on, like exactly on there. Nineheart, I don't see him fighting really anyone else. Like I feel like he's definitely going to keep to the sidelines like he originally was planned, because we've clearly seen already the fact that when Joel took him down, it's the fact that yeah, his greatest weapon is the fact that he's able to use his magic and he's able to bring out these opponents. Like honestly, what he's probably going to do, he's going to be there keeping the other Fairy Tail members occupied in some way. Like when we see like with Miria and the rest of them, they're probably going to be fighting these monsters again alongside with the rest of the army. So I don't really feel like anyone's going to be having another clash with Nineheart as well. Demaria is definitely one I could see, like maybe she could possibly get involved in the whole Brandish versus Lucy fight. That could be something that could happen, but now the fact that Ultir's magic is gone, that someone has to sideswipe her. Like that's the only way I can feel like Demaria, someone that can control time. You need someone like either she gives up in some way, or maybe she comes see the light. The same thing with Brandish. Maybe Brandish takes her out after like Brandish in the bright side. Like we don't know. Like that's the question where it's like, a good majority of these Spriggans and all that, we can see what's gonna, like, you know, happen with them and all that. I feel like Lakade is just definitely a Natsu fight. That is just straight up a Natsu fight, whereas, like, he has to encounter him at one point. Maybe that might be him with Zeref and all that. It'd be like, let me introduce you. This is, like, you know, a brother, father, whoever his relationship is between Lakade. I've already done a video on that one as well, so I'm going to link that down below as well. But I think a lot of people can kind of agree already the fact that the main ones that definitely we kind of know who are going to be fighting who's going to be encountering who, and all that is Lakade, Aline, Brandish, Gray versus Infel, August versus Gildas, and God Serena versus the Dragon Slayers. I think this is a highly think that we can say that these are the ones that are definitely going to have, because these are the ones that have probably the most attachment to like sort of reasons to fight each other. Whilst like we've already seen all that like with like War, we've already seen his fight with Waxes, Demaria, we've already seen her fight with Wendy, so we don't like particularly know. Nineheart is not really the fighting kind and all that. It lets him go to deal like with his magic, just does it on the sidelines. Argyle is questionable. It would be nice to have another Argyle fight. Like, out of them all and all that, I feel like Argyle had a pretty decent fight. Jacob had an okay fight. I did like some parts of it, but it was a little bit questionable. But so far, out of all of them and all that, the ones that I liked the most was definitely the Demaria, the Wall, adding into as well. I did like the Bradman fight as well. However, though, it's like, you know, Nineheart, I did enjoy, like, Jalal finally getting his moment to shine in the series. I don't particularly feel like, no, like, Nineheart's a good fighter because the whole thing about him was his magic, but I definitely did enjoy, like, you know, like, a bunch of those fights, and I'm very looking forward to definitely the ones I've mentioned, so, like, Lakade, Aline, Brandish, Invel, August, definitely God Serena. I'm really looking forward to these ones, but the other Spriggans are the ones that are questionable. But I'm going to end it off there today, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. What do you think is going to be happening with the Spriggan 12? Who do you think is going to be fighting who? Do you think there are going to be some sneakers? Do you think this is a great way to redeem some of these Spriggans that kind of had little air fights at the start and then now they can improve them? We'll have to wait and see. But thank you very much for watching. As always, you love fairy tales as much as I do. You know, hit that like, you know, hit that subscribe. Thank you as always, though, and I will see you guys, though, next time.